So, have you noticed Greenland keeps popping up in these huge international debates lately? It feels like overnight it went from icebergs and polar bears to a potential chess piece among world powers.
It's wild, isn't it? Greenland used to seem so remote, but now the US, Russia, and China all see it as this strategic hotspot. It's almost like the Arctic's become a new stage for global influence.
Exactly, and it isn't just about who visits Greenland or sends a research boat, it's about control of territory. There's this idea that whoever has a foothold there could project power across the Arctic.
Yeah, and what's really kicked things up is the concern that if the US doesn't act, Russia or China might. That's shifted Greenland from being an afterthought to a top-tier national security concern.
Jumping off that, remember the talk about whether the US should actually buy Greenland? At first, it sounded almost like a real estate joke. But then, it got serious pretty fast.
Yeah, I remember thinking, is this for real? But the logic was that owning Greenland would let the US secure it completely, not just lease military bases. That's a huge step up in commitment.
And there's this whole debate about whether money is even the right approach. Like, how do you put a price on a territory that's tied to national identity, especially when Denmark's involved too?
Denmark's role is fascinating. They're technically Greenland's overseers, but the idea was that past expeditions like those old boats from centuries ago shouldn't automatically equal ownership today. It's a diplomatic minefield.
Thinking about security, it gets even more intense. There's talk about Russian destroyers, Chinese submarines, all just off Greenland's icy shores. That paints a pretty vivid picture.
Honestly, it sounds straight out of a Cold War thriller. But the fear is real. The Arctic's opening up with melting ice, and suddenly there's space for new naval routes and potentially military expansion.
And that's the root of the argument. If the US doesn't step in, another power will. The idea is, you can't afford to lose ground in a place with that much strategic value, especially with rivals lurking nearby.
It's almost like a high-stakes game of King of the Hill, but the hill is frozen and surrounded by global muscle. No wonder the tone has gotten tougher about doing something, whether they like it or not.
That leads right to this key distinction. Owning territory versus just having a military lease. Why is full ownership seen as so much more secure?
Well, the argument goes that you don't defend a lease with the same intensity as you defend your own land. Think about it. If something is truly yours, you go all in to protect it, right?
That's a good point. There was even a comparison to past diplomatic deals. Like with Iran, the suggestion being that short-term agreements don't have the same teeth as actual sovereignty.
Exactly. And with Greenland, the feeling is that if the US only rents a base, it can't really control the future. Actual ownership is seen as a long-term guarantee in a region full of surprises.
But it's not just about one country. NATO comes into play too. There's this sense that protecting Greenland isn't just a US issue, but something that ties into wider alliances.
NATO's involvement definitely raises the stakes. The claim is that if the US hadn't pushed, NATO might not even exist today. But at the same time, there's a line the US won't tolerate Russia or China in Greenland, no matter what.
And there's even that awkward twist on one hand. There's respect and even friendliness toward Russia and China's people and leaders. On the other, a firm stance that they can't get a foothold in Greenland.
Yeah, it's a weird mixed diplomacy on the surface, but tough red lines underneath. It really shows how complicated these big-picture issues get when national pride, security, and alliances are all tangled together.